day, Internet people.
Hello.
It's Phil. Here I am with my Team League deck. As you can see, I used Dual Knights, and as some of you will have played against me probably. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to get in and tell you what was in the deck. So the starter is this your lovely Desire Dual Knight Heloise. Basically, if the number of other rare guards with Dual Knight in its name is 3 or more, she's an 8k booster. So, you know, not bad. Kind of essentially the closest you've got to a vanilla 8 in the Dual Knight deck. And it doesn't have to boost a Vanguard, but generally that's a good idea because it'll help your Ashley or Ashley reverses hit the 21 regularly. Oops, spoiler.
Spoiler, but not really.
Boom, 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 boom. 4 heal triggers. Nothing special there.
Standard.
Boom, 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 boom. 4 heal triggers.
Draw triggers.
That's what I said, isn't it?
No.
What did I say?
You said heal triggers.
Ah, they're also heal triggers. I actually run 8 heals. And crit, 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 crit. I'd probably run more crits, but there aren't any more Dual Knight ones. I didn't really want to run that many non-Dual Knight cards, so that's that.
Things seem to work very well anyway, so...
Yeah. Okay, already onto the Grade 1 lineup. I run 3 of this new one from BTO2, which is, I can never read it, it's such a small font. Heat Wind Dual Knight Cymbeline. It's a fantastic card. Basically, when it's called, or when it's placed on the rear guard, due to any method at all, you can tap it and give another unit plus 10k, as long as, again, you have 3 or more other Dual Knight rear guards. So basically what that means is if you call it behind a 9k or an 11k, and you don't want it to hit 16 or whatever, you can do that. And you might be able to hit either 19 or 21, depending on what it's behind. Behind Miranda, that is a 21k column straight away. Well, it doesn't even have to be behind. If you could just call it over there somewhere, and Miranda's over there, it still works. So, you know, that's a pretty nice little card. Can be very useful in certain situations, particularly early game. If you manage to fill your field early, there on a 9k Vanguard, you can turn any of your 9k grade 2s into a 19, which
and watch them cry.
Don't nobody want to guard that. And then this is pretty much the only non-Dual Knight in the deck. 4 of the new Perfect Guard, the unflipping one.
It is the only Dual Knight in the deck, isn't it?
The apart from the Strides, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Holy Knight Guardian. I wish it was called Holy Dual Knight Guardian.
So close.
Literally, the only thing that makes this slightly iffy is that it does, if she's the only card in your damage zone, it means any cards that require a Dual Knight specific counterblast,
and there are a couple, then
that won't work. But then the chances are, out of your entire deck, you're not going to have that many of these in the damage zone, unless you're me.
I was going to say, unless it's you.
Yeah, the number of times I've been crit on the first turn and 2 of these go into the damage zone, and I just wince.
You cried the manly tears.
Yeah. Then we run 2 of these. This is the Limit Break Remover Dual Knight Saber Me.
First thing to be superior called without fail.
Yeah, superior. Well, yeah. Generally, he is the first superior call. There's only really any need to run 2 of those, I believe, because it's only going to be useful early game anyway, and only in the certain situation where you can break ride before you're on 4 damage.
I believe you did that. You do that quite a bit anyway.
Yes, it does tend to work fairly often, and it's great if you happen to. Yeah, well, if they're grade stuck somehow, even with G-Assist, and you're on grade 3, the next turn you break ride before they're even on grade 3. That's pretty funny. Yeah, it's just a very useful card, really, and at the end of the day, even if you're not using its skill, it's a 7k booster. Behind pretty much anything in the deck, you're going to hit a decent number, so you can't complain about that. Then we run 4 of the classic Stinging Dual Knight Shelly from all the way back in BT10. Let's get her in the centre there. She's basically your 10k attacker when it's when you've got 3 or more other Dual Knight rear guards.
The number of times that you've been sad because it does, just because it's not, it needs a Dual Knight Vanguard is what you prefer.
Yeah. However, this makes sense with the way the Dual Knight's played. I was lamenting the way it works.
You don't anymore.
Now that you've got certain new cards, shall we say,
we'll get to in a second.
It's become a lot of an easier criteria to meet there. As you'll notice, pretty much all of the cards in this deck say if you've got 3 or more other Dual Knight rear guards, actually.
And it's never a problem anymore, is it?
No. This is a tech choice, just one of these. Basically, under certain circumstances, she's useful. She's only a 6k, but it's a Security Dual Knight Alwayn. And you can choose a grade 3 card with Ashley and its card name from your drop zone, put it on the bottom of the deck. If you have a Royal Paladin Vanguard, choose one of your grade 3 units with Ashley and its card name. That unit gets plus 5,000 until the end of turn. That's an activated ability, so if you've got 5 Ashleys in your drop zone, if you wanted to, you could just cycle all 5 to the bottom of the deck and give an Ashley plus 25.
Yeah.
So, it's not one I use very often, to be honest, which is why I've dropped it down to 1. But in a late game situation, it can be pretty funny. Team this up with a Saint Blow Dragon Stride, and then just say, you know what, final turn kind of deal. I'm gonna just pile as much power on it as I can.
No game.
Yeah, because Saint Blow Dragon is just crazy anyway, and that just makes him the next level. Grade 2s. 3 of this one from the latest set. This is Pure Wind Dual Knight Kimberlinus, is it?
Yes.
Kimberlinus.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's a fantastic card as well. He's a grade 2, 9k. When he intercepts, if you've got 3 or more other Dual Knight rear guards, you can Soul Blast 1 when he intercepts, and he gets plus 10k defense. So he intercepts for 15k. So all you people like your Silent Toms out there, and even your Maelstrom effects, whatever, this guy can kind of counter that. And if your opponent's coming at you with a Stride, swing it for 26, you pop him in front of the Vanguard with his 15k shield, your Vanguard's on 11. You pretty much, you've matched their figure already, then you can just start throwing down for a regular kind of guard, like 5k for 1 trigger, 10k for 2. So it kind of makes life a lot easier if you kind of having to guard against Stride units without having a perfect guard in your hand. And again, you can superior call these fairly easily.
They really are almost like extra perfs.
Yeah, they're very good. Next up in the grade 2 lineup. 1, 2, 3, 4. Banding Dual Knight Miranda. She's your 11k attacker as long as you've got an Ashley grade 3 on your Vanguard circle. And yeah, not much more to say. If she hits a Vanguard, I believe, specifically. Yeah, if it hits a Vanguard, you can give another unit plus 3k as long as your Vanguard has Ashley in its name. So generally people will guard this attack because they don't want your column suddenly going from a 19k swing into a 22k swing, because then all of a sudden that's another 5k shield for them to guard. So yeah, she's pretty useful, and you can swing with her unboosted, and against most decks that's enough to hit the Vanguard. So it's a nice one to do, particularly with Ashley Reverse, because you can afford to use her booster as your lock fodder, as I will cover when I get that far.
Time for the most broken card ever made ever!
Yeah, this is the most expensive card in the actual main deck, I believe, these days.
Yes.
Or at least it's on a par with Ashley herself. Dual Knight Swordme. He was the Legion promo Legion mate.
That was ridiculously hard to get hold of.
Incredibly hard to get a hold of.
You had to use quite literally some pennies.
Yes, I did. Currently, it's still got a value of about £12 for this card. So that's like a £50 pile of cards right there.
I find it funny, you're just sitting on 2 spares.
I know, right? Yeah, I say it was hard to get a hold of. I ended up buying an auction on eBay for 3 of them, just to complete my playset, because it's a vital part of the Dual Knight deck. Basically, as you could probably read on the screen, but it's Counterblast 1 when it's placed. Search your deck for a grade 1 or less Dual Knight, call it to rearguard, and shuffle your deck. Basically, this replaces Sybil. Sybil was your 8k, and it was a grade 2 with a counterblast of 2 for essentially the same skill.
But it also worked on the Vanguard circle.
Yeah, the only real advantage was that Sybil did work on the Vanguard circle, but unless you got crit first turn, you didn't generally use it. Whereas this thing is just amazing. Every time you pull one, whether it's a drive check or draw for turn, you're like, nice, I can now sacrifice a column and not really care. So if you're going against like a Phantom Blaster Diablo Legend deck and they're like, oh yeah, you've got to sacrifice 2 of your rear guards in order to guard this attack, you're like, fine, I'll get rid of that and that. Whoosh, gone. Next turn you get through that attack, you know, just a pair for whatever. Counterblast. Oh look, here's a booster. And if you feel like it, you can call that Kimberlinus or whatever his name is and tap it and give that, you know, plus 10. There's a 19. If they let a Miranda hit, there's a 22 unboosted. So, yeah.
Your deck's gross.
I know, right? So it's he is like the boss grade 2, really. And people are going to give him things over decks and alt mile decks and all sorts, but you have to kind of really shift. You basically still have to run a dual knight deck if you're planning to run this guy consistently, because he does require a dual knight counterblast. So that is something to be aware of before you go spending your money on them. Grade 3s. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ashley, the break ride, you probably know what this girl does already. Basically, limit break 4, when she is ridden upon, the unit that rides gains plus 10k and a crit. And when she attacks a Vanguard, she gets plus 2.
It was funny because when she came out, she was considered to be the worst break ride.
Yeah.
And technically she still is, but when it's your 4th turn and you break ride without fail, almost. Doesn't matter what amount of damage you're on, that's kind of good.
Yeah, your opponent is either forced to guard or forced to take a significant hit with a good chance of getting crit on top. So that's that. Which leads us obviously onto 4 Broken Heart Dual Knight Ashley Reverse, of which one of these is a sexy SP. So Ashley Reverse has got an interesting skill. Obviously she's a cross ride for regular Ashley, so she'll get the plus 2k base, giving you a really nice 13k defense stat. Her limit break is to counterblast 1 and lock one of your dual knight rearguards. You can then retire an opponent's front row rearguard and search your deck for any dual knight and call it to rearguard.
So what you usually do, I take it, is kill off an interceptor and then call Sword Me.
Yep.
And make a column.
You call a Sword Me if you're missing a column specifically. If you're not missing a column, you're more likely to call a Miranda, particularly if you've locked a back row one there. Yeah, Miranda or Interceptor, depending on how the game's going. If you've not got a great hand, you'll call the Interceptor and think, okay, that can help me stall out a turn. But generally, she's a very flexible card as to how you run her. If nothing else, you can pay a Counterblast of 1 and it's a retire, even if you don't want a superior call particularly. And who can say no to a bit of deck thinning if you just want to like make triggers more likely, right? Just call the same dual knight over itself if you want, and that's fine. So she's pretty nice. So that's the main deck. And then we go on to Stride units. So one of this guy is Shrouded Divine Knight Gablade. He's the trial deck card. If he hits a Vanguard, you call a grade 2.
You call a Sword Me.
I call a Sword Me. That's basically what it should say. Call a Sword Me.
Explain about how people kept foolishly letting this card hit a Team League.
Yeah, so let's say at Team League, I was in a situation where I had a field a bit like this. Yeah. Say that was my field. And I'm like, okay, I've only got 2 columns here. I'd be like, you know what? Okay, swing at a rear guard for a start. They're like, oh, okay, take it. And then you do this. And I'll go, I'll swing at your Vanguard. And they're probably thinking, oh, yeah, no problem. What's he going to call if it hits? Like an 11k hitter or something? Nothing big. No biggie. No guard. You're like, fine. Okay, no guard. That hit. Here's a Sword Me. Counterblast 1. Here's a Shelley. And there you go. You've got yourself an entire new column that's going to swing for 16 whether you use it to pop out a rear guard or a vanguard. It's just nice and flexible. So that's that choice. Blade, I've run it at 1. I was wondering about running it at 2, but generally it's a first stride effect. Anytime after the first stride, they've had a chance to get the guarding stuff into their hand, particularly perfs. So it's more likely to come off in that early stage. I run one of this guy. This guy is specifically if I've seen that they are running or they've pulled into a perfect guard, because what this does is I stride. I've got my high-powered column where my vanguard is there, and it means I can give +5 to a rear guard column. Basically, all that is that it means that one of my rear guard columns swings for a higher number. So this one forces out the perf, and then this one just benefits with the actual effect. That's my plan with that.
That one's kind of like half an alt mile.
Yeah, it is basically all mile skill at half, and it's got no counterblast or cost on it. So that's why I run it basically instead of a second alt mile. I think it has its place. If they've got 3 cards in hand and one of them is a perf, you're thinking, okay, they will definitely perf that, +5 there. Whereas if you do something like, for example, my next choice here, I'll show Saint Blow Dragon, who for a persona flip basically gets +3k for each of your rear guards, and then if there's 2 or more of them, he gains a crit, and it has to be on a GB2 on your G zone by this point. But that's all on your vanguard, and if they've got a perf, you don't use that skill because you're like, yeah, it's going to get perfed anyway, regardless of whether I do the skill or not.
Still, I imagine it always feels quite nice to be like, 49 and a crit.
Yeah, 49 and a crit's not a number to be sniffed at. I'm definitely not, saying this guy's bad by any means. He's probably the card in here that's responsible for winning me the most games with just an attack that they can't guard. But he's not my first early stride. He is an game ender for me, this guy. The guy that gets you to the game end, I run at 2, because that's Divine Knight of Flashing Flame, Samuel. He's a bit like a drag ruler. Let's zoom back in a little bit there. Basically, he's got the skill of Counterblast. I can't even read it properly there. There we go. Counterblast 2. When this unit attacks a vanguard, if the number of cards in your opponent's damage zone is 4 or less, and the number of your rear guards is 5 or more, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your opponent's vanguards and deal 1 damage. Perform a damage check. His main use is to get your opponent to 5 damage before they're ready to guard. Best utilised when they're already on 4 and they haven't quite built up their hand yet.
People didn't seem to know too much about, from what I understand of you telling me, that people didn't seem to understand about how that works when you use it.
No, a lot of people, I was counterblasting 2 when I attacked, and then they were throwing down the guard before they took the damage. But this is specifically when this unit attacks, they take the damage before you start calculating any attacks. So if you do use this guy, make sure they take the damage first. That can actually be beneficial to them, because if they damage check a trigger, then they have to guard for less, and it actually, it's better for them sometimes if they do that. So that's how it should be done. They should always take the damage and perform the damage check before the guarding step.
There is always that worry when you use that and you're on equal or less damage.
Yeah, if they heal...
Because if they heal, it works.
Yeah, heals kind of suck in that situation, but you take the risk on it sometimes, and frankly, I just think it's generally worth taking the risk. If you can knock them up to 5 damage and they've not got a massive hand, what can you say? You've got them there, and then the next turn, they're on 5. Maybe they healed and got to 4, I don't know, but this guy comes in, swings for nearly 50k, or maybe 50k plus if you use the right combination of cards. You can use the grade 1 and tap it to give it plus 10 if you want to call one of those, if you just want to really push hard. Which is quite funny. Perhaps if you're against, let's say... No, you couldn't do it against Link Joker because the triangle formation would prevent the skill working. Is what I would say was the biggest downfall for this deck. Link Joker. If particularly...
Link took us up Samuel working.
Yes, Samuel literally doesn't work if one of your units is locked, because you need a full rearguard for that to work. That's his downfall. And Saint Blow, you'd have to have a full locked field for it to fail completely.
Yeah.
But you can certainly have a decrease in its power for every locked unit. It's 3k less than it would be otherwise.
Good thing he only takes 2 rearguards to gain a crit.
Yeah. It's generally he's a good, reliable option. It's a bit like just doing a break ride whenever you want, really. But it is a persona flip, so that happens once there, that happens once, that happens once, that happens once, and Samuel's the one that happens. Well, yeah, Samuel and Saint Blow both happen twice in that regard. So.
The overall thing about your deck is that it's just so versatile.
It's flexible. Whatever the situation is, it's basically, I'm running low on rearguards, I'll play that. He's got 1 perf, I'll play that and boost a column. He's not on a lot of damage yet. Now he is. He's on lots of damage and he hasn't got a big hand. Good luck with that. So, and then even if you don't want to stride, you've got the options of break riding, using Ashley to retire any of their key units. If they've got a Silent Tom that's being particularly troublesome or something along those lines.
My deck.
I'm just saying, that's one of those cards that you see a lot and it does your head in. It just lets you pick off something that's being annoying from the front row with Ashley reverse. So, yeah, I've gone entire games and won entire games without striding once with this particular deck, just because of the support. Yeah, in fact, at Team League as well, of my 4 wins out of 6 games, 2 of those games did end 6-2 in my favour. So, it's a rush deck. With the aid of Sword Me, you can often find yourself attacking, quite hard very, very quickly. Even on grade 2, you might get 3 full-powered 16k-ish attacks.
It's just gross.
Yeah. People generally are very surprised by the power of this deck. So, yeah, that's it. We're coming at about 22 minutes there. So I hope you enjoyed watching this little deck profile. Again, there'll be more information about how this deck performed coming towards the end of the week. If you played against my deck, and you played against me or any other team, I'd love to hear what you thought about the deck and how you think, if you spotted any misplays, I'd be interested to know what you think about that. And yeah, so coming up next, as in tomorrow, will be Miss Lena's Oracle Think Tank deck that she used. So look forward to that one, and we'll see you tomorrow.